Hello, people that how is it doing today? I'm talking about something that so many people have said. In the Constitution of Ireland, it says just basic, protect human rights and the rest of that crack, which is said in the United Nations Human Rights and so on and so on and so forth. And the Irish government couldn't care if they were abusing everybody's rights because they couldn't care less. But I think it would be good if we put in the right to housing. Loads of people have talked about it, and loads of people have said it. Michael E. Higgins, just to say, Michael E. Higgins has to sign it, and if he did have the sign, then if it did come into law, he allowed fictions. He signs up. I can't remember what he signed, but he signs up on last Christmas, not this Christmas, last Christmas. The Strokes Town evictions. He signed in the law before then, permitting evictions, I think, and we have to remember that. We can't forget that. We really can't forget that. He signed it in to the allow fictions and the rest. He did sign it. I remember him signing something in for fictions. And I do remember it very fondly, but I can't remember the name of the amendment change that went like that. But it should be put in Finland. Take it separate for Finland. Finland deems the house a right, a human right. It's not a reward. In this country, you have to earn it, more or less. You have to work your ass off every day of the week. You pay half your money towards taxes towards the government, and they don't give you nothing in return. You could spend half your money goes towards the tax, and you get nothing out of it nearly at the end of the week. You could work nearly 24 hours nearly a day, and you probably get nothing out of it anyway. And people have a mortgage and everything to pay, and the government couldn't care less if people stood on their head. Over in Finland, it's a lot different. They care about people. They really, really care about people. And they have that in the constitution, and they make sure there'll be nobody homeless, and nobody without a house, because as they say, it's a right. It's not a reward. In this country, you have to really just work yourself to death until you can get it, which is totally wrong. In a democracy and in a society, it's totally wrong. But again and again, when was democracy ever in this country? And it was in the last few years. But it's a sad thing to have in this country. And would you believe, during the 50s, during the 60s, during the 70s, Ireland was a lot poorer of a country. Very backwards, I suppose you could kind of say, for a while, during them times. It wasn't much money in the country. Like, there was a lot of money in the 90s and 80s. There was a lot more money in the country. But, back then, there wasn't much money in the 50s. They were struggling to get money around here to, upgrade roads and to do this and to do the other, and, they could still put people to houses. They were building council houses, nearly weekly. In Cavan in the 50s and in the 60s, they started up with the council demand, even though they had lack of money. Like, literally, they were scraping the money to try and build houses, but they got them done. Like, it's mad. But then again, people could say there was a lot more workers in the country, which is true. There was a lot more people in the country back then than there is now. There's a lot of them actually left after the crash, and which I wouldn't blame. There were a lot more better pay, a lot more better conditions than in this country, which is probably the same for every part of society in Ireland. So that's the update. But hopefully, maybe someday they might implement it in. Like it says, basic rights and the rest of that crack, which is nearly in every constitution. But as I said, the right to housing, and if a government didn't do that, they'd be unconstitutionally. It'd be going against the constitution, which would make them unstable and would have to. They have to do something, because then everything will go tits up. But anyway, when did everything never go tits up in this country? But yeah, it would put a bit of strain on the government if they were going against the constitution. Obviously, if they were, thingamajig like that, they have to do something then, because there'd be a lot of up there. I don't know what would happen, but it wouldn't be too good if you went against the constitution. You like the housing, and they don't provide for any housing. But anyway, take a fortune. Let's see what happens. We have to see what happens. You never know what government will go for. Maybe I might be wrong, and we might not even need to add it into the constitution. But I highly doubt Michael Higgins to sign it in anyway. So yeah, take a fortune, subscribe for more, and bye.